All rise. Veuillez vous lever. The International Criminal Court is now in session. L'audience de la Cour pénale internationale est ouverte. Please be seated. Veuillez vous asseoir.
Good afternoon, everyone. Court officer, please call the case.
Good afternoon, Mr. President, Your Honors. Situation in the Central African Republic 2 in the case of the prosecutor versus Alfred Yekatom and Patrice Edouard Ngai ssona, case reference ICC 0114-0118, and for the record, we are in open session.
Thank you. I ask for the appearances of the parties. First, the prosecution, please.
Merci.
Thank you. Your Honour, Your Honours, the Office of the Prosecutor is represented today by Mr. Kweku van der Puy, Senior Trial Lawyer, Madam Olivia Streven, Senior Trial Lawyer, and behind me, Lucio Garcia, Senior Trial Lawyer, Eric Iverson, Senior Trial Lawyer, Madam Maria Bernikowa, Senior Trial Lawyer, Mr. Pierre Belbenoit Avish, Senior Trial Lawyer, Madam Manoshrita Prataban, Trial Lawyer, Madam Irina Galois, also Trial Lawyer, and Mr. Louis Rogambaji, Trial Support Assistant. So I want to say that in English. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Masida.
Good afternoon, Mr. President, Your Honors. For victims of Yaver crime, appearing today remotely, Ms. Rabe Sandatana, Mr. Fall, Mr. Dangabo Moussa, and Ms. Duzima Lawson. In courtroom today, Ms. Evelyn Ombeni, and myself, Paulina Masida.
Thank you. Mr. Seprun.
Good afternoon, Mr. President, Your Honors. The former child soldiers are represented by Fiona Lau, Anne Grabowski, and myself, Dmitro Supron. Thank you.
I turn to the defense. First, Ms. Dimitri for the defense team of Mr. Yekatom.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. President. Good afternoon, Your Honors. Good afternoon to my colleagues. Mr. Yekatom is present in the courtroom this afternoon for his judgment, and he is represented by, on my right-hand side, Ms. Anta Gisse and Ms. Sarah Bafadel, Associate Counsel. Behind me, we have Mr. Guillaume Suzuki, Assistant to Counsel, as well as Sabrine Baissat and Mr. Florent Pages-Cranier, Legal Assistant. On my left-hand side, we have Yusra Lamkadam and Alexandra Baer, Case Manager, as well as our intern, Axel Chembry. And in the public gallery, we have Maël Dalin and Mr. Obed Yamale. From Bangi, Central Africa, following remotely but not appearing on the camera, we have the investigating team, Mr. Régis Changai, Mr. Rufin Pabingi, Mr. David Deboué, and our linguistic assistant, Mr. Lionel Messi Tikpa. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe we also have, following remotely, Mr. Jason Antley from Nairobi, and myself, Milan Dimitri.
Well, that was quite a lot of names to remember, actually. I turn now to the defense of Mr. Ngai ssona. Mr. Knops, please.
Good afternoon, Your Honors. Good afternoon, everyone in the courtroom. The defense team of Mr. Ngai ssona today appears before the chamber with, on my right side, Laurent van der Leer, Ms. Sarah Pedrosa, on my left side, Mr. Kerry Knops Hamburger, Alexander Desdavi and Michael Rouse, the second row, the Spina Eleftheriou, Ms. Chiara Shividici and Barbara Smatsula, and on the public gallery we have Ms. Deas and Ms. Hanin Gali. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Today, the Chamber pronounces its judgment on the criminal responsibility of Alfred Yekatom and Patrice Edouard Ngai for the charges brought against them. The Chamber decided to hear submissions on potential sentencing before issuing a decision under Article 74 of the statute. As I will elaborate soon, the Chamber finds Alfred Yekatom and Patrice Edouard Ngai guilty on part of the charges brought against them. For this reason, the Chamber today pronounces its verdict and sentence under Articles 74 and 76 of the statute. As provided for by the law, this shall also include the delivery of a summary of the Chamber's main findings and conclusions. The Chamber will first provide such a summary. After that, I will read out the verdict and sentence rendered by the Chamber. This was an exceptionally comprehensive and complicated case, both in terms of establishing the facts, as well as assessing the evidence and the contributions of the accused to the crimes. The Chamber has considered the evidence of a total of 174 witnesses and nearly 20,000 items of evidence, which included, among others, documents, photographs, videos, Facebook conversations, audios, and satellite imagery. All the details are set out in the written judgment. The written judgment, including verdict and sentence, has been issued today and will be notified shortly after the conclusion of today's hearing. It contains the full and reasoned statement of the Chamber's findings and conclusions and remains the only authoritative document. Today, as I said, the Chamber will start with a summary. This case concerns crimes against humanity and war crimes which took place in Bangi and the west of Central African Republic, CAR, between 2013 and at least February 2014. During the course of this trial, the Chamber has heard from a large number of witnesses accounts of these events and of the suffering that the civilian population experienced during this time. The case before this Chamber concerned crimes specifically against Muslim civilians or individuals considered as such. However, the Chamber emphasizes that in the context of this case, it has also looked at the more recent history of the country. This has shed light on the civilian population in the CAR as a whole, suffering in one way or another from the conflicts in its country. The Chamber finds it important to emphasize that it has not found the relevant conflict in the CAR to be of a religious nature at the outset. Many witnesses, non-Muslims and Muslims alike, have stated before the court that before the conflict, they lived together peacefully. However, the different groups and their leaders instrumentalized religion to gain political and economical power. The Seleka opposing then President François Bozizé emerged around August 2012. It was led by CAR citizens, was composed mainly but not exclusively of Muslims. It also included elements from Chad and Sudan. Michel Chotodia became its leader. In late 2012, the Seleka started advancing towards Bangi. On 24th March 2013, the Seleka took control of Bangi and of power in the car. Michel Chotodia proclaimed himself president. The Seleka committed terrible violence and abuses across the car, in particular against individuals considered to be associated with François Bozizé and against non-Muslims, mostly Christians, but also animists and others. Due to such violence and abuses, tensions between Muslim and non-Muslim communities increased. The then president, François Bozizé, Mr. Ngai, Bernard Mokom, and others fled to Cameroon. Maxime Mokom, Mr. Yekatom, and others fled to Songo in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. François Bozizé, Mr. Ngai, Bernard Mokom, and others planned immediately steps to respond to the Seleka violence in the car. They wanted to ensure François Bozizé's return to power by all means possible, including armed violence. They did so through meetings in Cameroon and communicating with individuals in Songo, in particular with Maxime Mokom. He, in turn, liaised with persons and armed groups in Cameroon, Songo, and within the car. This included his father Bernard Mokom, Mr. Yekatom, and groups forming in the provinces to coordinate their activities and eventual advance onto Bangi. One of the initiatives to achieve the so-called return to the constitutional order, which meant the return of François Bozizé to power, was the Front pour le Retour à l'ordre.
Front for the Return to the Constitutional Order in the Central African Republic, so-called FROCA.
It was founded by François Bozizé, Mr. Ngai, and others in August 2013 in Paris. FROCA coexisted with other efforts, specifically the galvanization of armed groups eventually known collectively as the Anti-Balaka, largely composed of Christians. Mr. Ngai was actively involved in planning steps to respond to the Seleka violence in the car and to ensure François Bozizé's return to power. He met and liaised with François Bozizé, Bernard Mokom, and others to discuss strategies and plans. He reached out to individuals in and outside of the car to gain support for their cause. He also provided financial assistance to those willing to assist in their activities. Mr. Ngai knew and was informed of the advance of the armed groups he supported and of the hostilities during this advance. This included the killings and dislocation of Muslim civilians from various locations. He also knew that an attack would take place on Bangi and provided funds to anti-Balaka elements that participated in the attack on Bangi on 5th December 2013. At the same time, after a brief stay in Songo, Mr. Yekatom started forming a group with Freddy Wanjo, also known as Cœur de Lion, and Habib Beina. This also was to plan a response to the Seleka violence and to remove Michel Chotodia and the Seleka from power. In light of the violence committed by the Seleka, and in parallel to the activities in Cameroon and Songo, self-defense groups formed or reactivated in various locations and localities across the car. These groups initially formed separately, but they started out with a common enemy, the Seleka, and increasingly coordinated their activities. Thereby, they essentially formed one movement. This movement came to be known as Anti-Balaka. The armed groups which initially formed in the provinces wanted to defend against the abuses and violence committed by the Seleka. Because of religious and ethnic commonalities, the anti-Balaka perceived the Muslims in the Ka as collectively responsible for, complicit in, or supportive of the violence and abuses committed by the Seleka. Thus, anti-Balaka elements targeted the Muslim civilian population, specifically in the west of the Ka. This stood not in isolation. Anti-foreign sentiments and inflammatory rhetoric towards Muslims were openly expressed by François Bozizé and others already before the Seleka takeover. They had primed the implementation and execution of the anti-Balaka's core objective. Such rhetoric was also reflected in meetings of François Bozizé, Mr. Ngai, ssona, and others in Cameroon. And it was repeated in a radio statement issued by Froka on 5th December 2013 regarding the attack on Bangi that day, which called this attack le rétablissement
the restoration of functional order,
and further stated that the anti-Balaka
are Central Africans who want to liberate their country from the yoke of jihadists from Darfur, Chad, and Sudan.
It is in the context of anti-Muslim animus that anti-Balaka groups started the advance towards Bangi. They started engaging in attacks against the Seleka from September 2013 onwards. The groups going to different localities communicated with each other and individuals abroad to coordinate the attacks. These individuals included Maxime Mokom. The attacks were not limited to Seleka forces. Instead, they included attacking localities with Muslim civilians, killing and dislocating many of them. Mr. Yekatom knew that the anti-Balaka perceived, and himself perceived, the Muslims in the Ka as collectively responsible for, complicit in, or supportive of the violence and abuses committed by the Seleka, and that the anti-Balaka targeted the Muslim civilians population, specifically in the west of the Ka. This also applied to Mr. Ngai, ssona. Mr. Ngai, ssona made his contributions fully aware that the anti-Balaka would violently target the Muslim civilian population in the west of the Ka, committing the widespread attack that ultimately took place from September 2013 through February 2014, including the seminal coordinated anti-Balaka attacks of Bangi and Bosangoa on 5th December 2013. Michel Chotodia eventually had to resign because of events on the 10th January 2014. A new transition government was formed in the Ka. In this context, the anti-Balaka structure started being further formalized. Mr. Ngai, ssona returned to the Ka on 14th January 2014. He was immediately installed as general coordinator of the anti-Balaka. In this role, Mr. Ngai, ssona represented the anti-Balaka as one entity towards national and international authorities. Catherine Samba-Panza, the transition president at the time, testified that from the anti-Balaka side and from January 2014 onwards, when she took her position, she had, I cite, no other person to contact but Mr. Ngai, ssona. Mr. Ngai, ssona was actively engaged in formalizing the structure of the anti-Balaka. He also continued providing financial assistance. Hostilities between the anti-Balaka and the Seleka continued largely unabated until the end of February 2014. The anti-Balaka continued to target Muslim civilian population in 2014 across the western Kar prefectures, specifically in attacks in the second half of January and early February 2014. Hostilities thereafter did continue but subsided considerably. Eventually, many Muslims were forced to leave their respective areas. Throughout the relevant period, Mr. Yekatom retained and exercised full and unrestricted control over his group. This group was seen as and understood to be part of the anti-Balaka. After this short overview, I'm now turning to the specific charges. These are discussed in 5 sections. First and second, the advance of the anti-Balaka groups in 2013 and hostilities on the way that culminated in coordinated attacks in Bangi and Bosangoa on 5th December 2013. Third, the Chamber addresses the crimes committed during events at the Yambara school in Bangi at the end of December 2013. Fourth, crimes committed in the context of the advance of Mr. Yekatom's group along the PK9 and Bangi axis. Fifth, and finally, the Chamber gives its view on the charge brought against Mr. Yekatom under count 29. First, the attacks on Bangi and Bosangoa on 5th December 2013. In the early morning hours of 5th December 2013, the anti-Balaka mounted a coordinated attack on Bangi, including in Boeing and Qatar. The plan to mount an attack on Bangi existed at least as of 30th November 2013. Anti-Balaka elements and groups traveled from the provinces to arrive close to Bangi before 5th December. During their move from the provinces to Bangi, anti-Balaka chiefs communicated across their groups. They kept and maintained records or lists of elements, armed themselves, waited at common locations, and prepared for an attack on Bangi. Mr. Ngai provided funds to anti-Balaka elements that participated in the attack on Bangi on 5th December. By the beginning of December 2013, several thousand anti-Balaka elements had arrived at the outskirts of Bangi to participate in the attack. News about an impending attack on Bangi circulated in various circles within the anti-Balaka leadership. Anti-Balaka groups that reassembled close to Bangi prior to the attack were each assigned a specific target within Bangi. They were instructed to begin the attack on the respective targets at 5 o'clock on 5th December 2013. The attack was carried out as planned, resulting in clashes between the anti-Balaka and Seleka in several locations in Bangi, including Boeing. The anti-Balaka began to retreat at around 10 o'clock that day. Mr. Yekatom's group coordinated with other anti-Balaka groups to participate in the attack on Bangi. In the afternoon of 4th December 2013, Mr. Yekatom chose some elements and instructed them to move towards Bangi. Mr. Yekatom instructed his elements to fight the Seleka, which included targeting sectors where, generally speaking, Muslims were to be found. On the night of 4th December 2013, Mr. Yekatom and some of his elements visited the market in Boeing for reconnaissance. That same night, Mr. Yekatom instructed his elements to target Seleka positions along the Boeing-Qatar PK5 direction. This encompassed attacking the Muslim traders at the market in Boeing. In the early morning of 5th December 2013, Mr. Yekatom launched the attack in Boeing, by firing an automatic pistol into the air when his group reached the market. The group advanced and fired at the Muslim traders at the market. Those who were inside the shops fled. At the market in Boeing, 3 Muslim traders were killed. They were Hassan Muhammad, as well as 2 unnamed persons. That day, Mr. Yekatom's elements also attacked the mosque in Boeing. Witness Salehu Ngai described how the memories of the Boeing mosque emotionally affected him. I quote, "It's difficult to explain what I feel within. It's difficult to describe what I feel, because I don't see why. When there is a problem, why is it that religious buildings are destroyed? For what reason? No matter what the problem might be, these are places where people take refuge when there are problems. And when I see this, it's true, it hurts. It's very sad to see the house of God destroyed. This is my opinion. I might be wrong, but if there are problems, and if someone goes to a religious place, a church or a mosque, in principle the action should stop. But to destroy a church or a mosque, to my mind, that makes no sense. That's what I feel. When I see it, it brings back all the memories of everything that was destroyed." Elements of Mr. Yekatom's group moved on to attack Qatar, where they clashed with the Seleka. During this attack, 1 unnamed Muslim man was killed. From 5th December 2013 onwards, Muslims of Boeing and Qatar fled to PK5 in Bangi. Some others fled to other parts in the car. With the influx of Muslims fleeing the attack on 5th December 2013, PK5, this region of Bangi, became overcrowded, uninhabitable, and unsafe. As a result, some Muslims, including the already mentioned Salehu Ngai and witness P2682, fled to neighboring countries, fearing for their safety. Witness Salehu Ngai described the emotional impact the events had on him. "But anyway, you take life as it comes, and you had to save your skin, and that's what we did. But you know, all these events, I think it's very difficult. It's very, very difficult to forget all that happened. And even to this day, when my mind rakes over it, it's a source of pain. And this is why I even avoid going to where I used to live. I avoid going there because as soon as I go in the area, all this comes flooding back to me. And so I would spend a sleepless night then." On the same day, the 5th December 2013, in coordination with the anti-Balaka attack on Bangi, anti-Balaka elements carried out an attack on the town of Bosangoa, roughly 300 kilometers north of Bangi. The anti-Balaka elements were divided into 2 groups, led by Florent Kema and Théophile Ndangba. The attack started at approximately 13 hours and lasted until the late afternoon or early evening. During the attack, the anti-Balaka targeted residential areas, including the Mboro neighborhood. This was generally known as the Muslim neighborhood in Bosangoa. The intention was to show that the anti-Balaka were attacking not only in Bangi, but also in the provinces, and to so-called free the town from the Seleka and all Muslims. As such, the anti-Balaka targeted Muslim civilians. During the attack, the anti-Balaka was well armed, with some AK-47s and RPGs, as well as hunting weapons. During the attack, an anti-Balaka element forced witness P2462 into sexual intercourse. He blindfolded and undressed her after the group of 5 anti-Balaka elements he was in had threatened her with their weapons. The evidence shows that the anti-Balaka killed at least the following 18 persons in the course of the attack. Khadija Ajaro, Kursi Abdelrahim, Abdel, also known as Adaye Akbaka, Atahir Abu, C17, a taxi driver, Atahir Jime or Jimet, Halima Husseini, Hamadou Buba, Usman Abaka, Usman Abaka's mother, Abdallah Muhammad, Abdel Kadir, Mariam Yamwa, Amadou Umaru, Abaka, Ismail, Salamatu, a Pearl, and Saleh Adim. At some point between 5th and 8th December 2013, the anti-Balaka burned and destroyed residential structures. This happened in the immediate vicinity of the Imam's residence. They were lived in by Muslims at the time of the attack. During the attack, the Muslim civilian population of Bosangoa fled the attacked neighborhoods and tried to seek shelter at the École de la Liberté. Their numbers there rose into several thousand. These Muslim civilians remained confined to the school many weeks and even months for fear of threats by the anti-Balaka. The school was totally overcrowded with Muslim refugees. Conditions there were absolutely inhumane. The Muslim civilians depended on the protection of international forces and could not leave the school premises without risk to their life. Because of the prevailing insecurity caused by the anti-Balaka and the dire and cramped conditions at the school, all Muslims staying there were eventually transported away to Chad. These persons were car residents and considered Bosangoa to be their home. Following this deportation, Bosangoa was emptied of its Muslim population. Witness P2049 testified, I quote, "I really have that desire to return home. My country remains my country. Today I'm suffering. My town is Bosangoa. I would like to return to Bosangoa, but peace has not been restored. If I go back there now, I do not have a home. I have no way to survive. When security would have been restored in my country, it will be with joy that I would return and resettle in my native town of Bosangoa." Following the attack on Bangi on 5th December 2013, Mr. Yekatom's group established a base at the Yambara school in Bangi. On 24th December 2013, following the death of a member of the Lapo Ngomat family, several members and friends of this family, including Saint-Sur Lapo Ngomat, 3 other men and 3 women, were on their way to find a taxi. This group included witnesses P0967, P1704, P1705, P1716, and P1811. Elements from Mr. Yekatom's group, led by a person named Alcanto, apprehended these 7 persons at a checkpoint close to Yambara. Alcanto pointed to the women in the group as belonging to the family of General Mamour and Michel Chotodia and being Muslim. The elements in Alcanto's group thus perceived the 7 persons as Muslims. They started to threaten the group with death, saying they would be, I quote, skinned like a papaya. This expression was used by elements in Mr. Yekatom's group in relation to the treatment of captured persons suspected of being Seleka. Witness and victim P0967 explained what this phrase meant to her when she heard it. Somebody who carries a machete and doesn't have any fruit in his hand. It's an image which shows that the fruit, or rather the plant which should be sown today, would have been us. It's an image, a very strong image. It was quite clear to us that it meant we would be buried that day. Alcanto ordered his elements to search the male captives. The elements also beat witnesses P1704 and P1716. Alcanto ordered his elements to take the 7 persons to Yambara. At Yambara, in Coeur de Lions, the deputy of Mr. Yekatom's presence, elements of Mr. Yekatom's group interrogated the 4 men of the group on their identity, ethnicity, and reasons for being there with the women. When Saint-Cyr was unable to speak the dialect of the ethnicity he said was his, elements in Mr. Yekatom's group accused him of being Gula and therefore associated with Michel Chotodia. The elements kept the woman apart from the male captives, but close by. Following the men's interrogation, elements in Mr. Yekatom's group forced them to undress, searched them again, and threatened them with death. They took the women inside Coeur de Lion's house. In the meantime, Saint-Cyr's interrogation continued outside. Elements in Mr. Yekatom's group beat Saint-Cyr. Coeur de Lion observed the mistreatment, encouraged the elements, and ordered them to continue. He said the victims were Muslims and Seleka, and that the elements should, I quote, do the job properly. Elements in Mr. Yekatom's group beat Saint-Cyr's legs, broke them, and tied him up in abachacha manner, which must have been unimaginably painful. Then one element cut off his toes, fingers, and an ear. Thereafter, elements in Mr. Yekatom's group took Saint-Cyr away. His relatives never saw him again, and his body was never recovered. Witnesses P1704, P1705, and P1716 were present when Mr. Yekatom's elements interrogated and beat Saint-Cyr and cut off parts of his body. Elements in Mr. Yekatom's group also beat these witnesses and threatened them with death. Meanwhile, elements in Mr. Yekatom's group searched the female captives inside Coeur de Lion's house. They forced the female captives to undress to their underwear, searched them again, and threatened them with death. At this time, the female captives could hear the interrogation and mistreatment of Saint-Cyr. They could hear his cries. Imagine how they must have felt. At some point, they could no longer hear him crying. Mr. Yekatom met the female captives inside Coeur de Lion's house later that evening. He introduced himself as Rombot and the chief. Mr. Yekatom interrogated the female captives about their ethnicities and family background. He knew they were Muslim. After Mr. Yekatom came to know about the details of the incident, Mr. Yekatom told an element in his group that the element who had cut off Sarsir's toes, fingers and an ear had done a good job. Mr. Yekatom considered Sarsir a traitor and in cahoots with the Seleka, and therefore that they could not, I quote, keep him. When Mr. Yekatom was asked about Sarsir's treatment at a later stage, he said in Sango, "E forolo tonga na papai," meaning they peeled the papaya. In the evening of 24th December 2013, witness P165, Sarsir's father, who did not know of the fate of his son at that time, came to meet Mr. Yekatom at Yambara. Mr. Yekatom, with Coeur de Lion, questioned witness P1654 for hours about his family and ethnicity and threatened him and his family with death. Elements in Mr. Yekatom's group brought the 3 female captives, together with witnesses P1704 and P1705, to another location at Yambara and kept them there at gunpoint. The female captives were threatened and again told they would be peeled like a papaya. The following morning, however, witness P1716 was released. The other members of the group were brought to a location close to Mpoko Airport. After mediation by various actors, they were eventually released on or about 27th December 2013. Starting on 10th January 2014, Mr. Yekatom and elements under his control left Yambara and advanced from Bangi on the road towards Mbaiki, along the Mpiki-9-Mbaiki axis. During the advance, the group took over a number of villages in the Lobai prefecture, which is located in the southwestern part of the Kar. These localities included Sekya, Ndangala, Bimon, Kapu, Bosongo, and Pisa. At the time of the group's presence on the Mbaiki road, Mr. Yekatom, Coeur de Lion, and Alcanto instructed the elements to kill all the Muslims in their area. Mr. Yekatom's group took over checkpoints at PK9, Sekya, Bimon, Bosongo, and Pisa. It also set up new bases at PK9 and Sekya. By taking over these checkpoints, Mr. Yekatom and his group aimed at searching and identifying Muslims in the area and raising money to finance the group. Due to and in fear of the advance of Mr. Yekatom's group along the PK9 Mbaiki axis, a significant proportion of the Muslim population fled their towns and villages along the axis. At least 1,000 Muslim civilians who fled from locations along the axis and in the Lobai prefecture went to Mbaiki. This substantially increased the Muslim population of the town. Muslims in Mbaiki at the time lived in great difficulty, under conditions of overcrowding, hunger, and fear of death from the Antibalaka. Witness Diakite Abu Bakr described the situation at the time as follows, I quote, "When the evacuees arrived in Mbaiki, prices of everything went high. There was not enough meat for the people. There was a general shortage of food, including vegetables like cocoa, aubergines, peanuts, manioc. Some of the evacuees had brought food, but that was all finished. The reserve in the city was all depleted. By the time they left the city, there was nothing left. Life was very difficult. They must have remained in Mbaiki for about 2 weeks before the trucks came and took them. At this time, the women were even scared to go to the market because the anti-Balaka were walking around armed with knives and machetes. He had never seen anything like this. Similarly, witness P2353 testified that, I quote, "It was hunger and a death threat that weighed on the populations. When you are hungry, when you've got nothing to eat, and you've got the death threats as well, life becomes terrible." Mr. Yekatom and elements under his control entered Bangi on 30th January 2014. That day, a meeting was held at the Jeanne d'Arc Church in Bangi to discuss the way forward under these circumstances. Mr. Yekatom and elements of his group, representatives of the Bangi civilian and religious authorities, international organizations and NGOs, as well as Sangaris, these are the French forces deployed to the car, attended. Already before this meeting, the removal of the Muslim civilian population of Bangi was a foregone conclusion. At this meeting, it was then decided. Mr. Yekatom's group settled in at least one base in Bangi. During this time, elements of Mr. Yekatom's group threatened and harassed Muslim civilians in Bangi, telling them to leave the area. The anti-Balaka also attacked a gendarme patrol in Bangi, which was there to protect the population. On 6 February 2014, Chadian forces transported the first group of Muslim civilians from Bangi to Chad and other locations in the car. These Muslim civilians left Bangi in fear of the anti-Balaka, and in particular due to the arrival of Mr. Yekatom's group in Bangi. The total number of Muslims removed from Bangi at the time amounted to at least 3,000. A second group of Muslims was transported away from Bangi to Bangi and other locations thereafter. These were all citizens of the car, and they considered Bangi or their villages along the axis as their home. As a result, very few Muslim civilians remained in Bangi. Witness P1666 described how he felt. When I left Bangi, it was extremely difficult. I had tears in my eyes. We didn't expect this departure. We didn't think that one day we would have to leave from this town. You must remember, we invested a lot. We built a lot up, and all of a sudden we had to abandon everything and leave. It was really with great sadness because we were forced to abandon everything which we had shared as we grew up. So there was a lot of sadness. It was difficult. It was very hard to bear. Jido Saleh, second deputy mayor of Bangi, and his family were among the very few remaining Muslims in Bangi. Jido Saleh himself made clear at the time that he would not leave, as he was in his country and had nowhere else to go. This refusal to leave would cost him his life. Elements of Mr. Yekatom's group threatened Jido Saleh. On 28 February 2014, a group of individuals attacked Jido Saleh's house. As he tried to flee, the group pursued him and threw stones at him. The group, which included at least 3 elements of Mr. Yekatom's group, one of them being Honorine Gbafalo, killed Jido Saleh as he tried to reach the gendarmerie. The chamber received a video depicting the particularly gruesome treatment of the dead body of Jido Saleh, a Muslim civilian mistreated and humiliated even beyond his death. This video shows the unbelievable cruelty with which Saleh's dead body was treated. Honorine Buffalo cut off Chido Saleh's genitals. Other individuals beat his head, his dead body, and cut parts of his body, including one of his ears and his neck, partly severing his head. Following the death of Chido Saleh, Mr. Yekatom told the then mayor of Mbaiki, Raymond Bongbandi, that the killing was, I quote, an accident, and he would pay for the burial, which he did not. As a direct consequence of Chido Saleh's killing, MISCA, another assistant force deployed to the car to protect the civilian population, ordered Mr. Yekatom and his elements to leave Baiki, which they immediately did. In relation to the above events, the Chamber has found that Mr. Yekatom committed a number of war crimes and crimes against humanity in connection with the attack on Bangi, the events at Yambara, and the advance of Mr. Yekatom's group along the PK9 Baiki axis. Similarly, the Chamber has found that Mr. Ngai aided, abetted, or otherwise assisted the commission of a number of war crimes and crimes against humanity in connection with the attacks on Bangi and Bosangoa, the events at Yambara, and the advance of Mr. Yekatom's group along the PK9 Baiki axis. This is, by majority, in relation to the war crime of torture and the war crime and crime against humanity of murder concerning the killing of Saint-Cyr. Judge Kovac dissents in this regard. Judge Kovac is of the view that the personal and specific nature of the motive of Mr. Yekatom's elements that contributed to the commission of these crimes created a break in what one would consider the ordinary course as legally required by Article 30, paragraph 3 of the statute. He therefore considered that this test is not satisfied in this specific instance in respect of Mr. Ngai. However, the Chamber has not upheld the charges against Mr. Ngai of the war crimes of pillaging and directing an attack against a building dedicated to religion in connection with the attack on Bosangoa. The Chamber has also not found Mr. Ngai responsible for the rape that took place in Bosangoa. The Chamber now turns to its conclusions regarding the charge 29 against Mr. Yekatom of conscripting and or enlistment of children under the age of 15 in his group at various locations and the assignment of various tasks to them between at least December 2013 and August 2014. The Chamber by majority, Judge Chung dissenting, concluded that the prosecution presented no reliable evidence showing the presence of children under the age of 15 within Mr. Yekatom's group during the relevant period. The Chamber concluded unanimously that witnesses P2475, V45001, and V45002 were wholly unreliable. The Chamber by majority, Judge Chung dissenting, also found witness P2476 wholly unreliable. Having considered the evidence before it, the Chamber concluded that no evidence supported the alleged presence of children under the age of 15 within Mr. Yekatom's group in Bangi or locations on the PK9 Mbaki axis, including Pisa, Batalimo, and Sekya. The Chamber by majority, Judge Chung dissenting, also found that the evidence did not support the alleged presence of children under the age of 15 within Mr. Yekatom's group in Baiki. Judge Chung considered that witness P2476 was a member of Mr. Yekatom's group in Baiki and under the age of 15 at the relevant time. The Chamber by majority, Judge Chung dissenting, has thus not upheld the charge against Mr. Yekatom of the war crime of conscription, enlistment, and use of children under the age of 15 years to participate actively in hostilities. Judge Chung would have concluded on Mr. Yekatom's responsibility in this regard. Yeah, it's already nearly an hour, but this is only the oral summary of the Chamber's findings. And the Chamber will now proceed to pronounce the verdict and sentence as detailed in the written judgment. Specifically, the written judgment discusses extensively the factual and legal considerations of the Chamber for the criminal responsibility of the accused. The verdict in this case, which concerns 2 accused and many charges and related sentence, are very long and complex. The accused may remain seated. Trial Chamber 5 of the International Criminal Court, for the reasons set out in detail in the judgment, and on the basis of the evidence submitted and discussed before the Chamber at trial and the entire proceedings, pursuant to Article 74, Paragraph 2 of the statute, finds Alfred Rombort Yekatom, under count 1 of the charges, guilty of the war crime of attack against the civilian population as such, pursuant to Articles 8, Paragraph 2, E, I, and 25, Paragraph 3A of the Rome Statute, committed on 5th December in 2013 in Bangi, including in Boeing and Qatar. Under count 2 of the charges, guilty of the crime against humanity of murder, pursuant to Articles 7, Paragraph 1A, and 25, Paragraph 3A of the Rome Statute, committed on 5th December 2013 in the market in Boeing and Qatar, Bangi. Under count 3 of the charges, guilty of the war crime of murder, pursuant to Articles 8, Paragraph 2, C, I, and 25, Paragraph 3A of the Rome Statute, committed on 5th December 2013 in the market in Boeing and Qatar, Bangi. Under count 4 of the charges, guilty of the crime against humanity of forcible transfer and deportation, pursuant to Articles 7, Paragraph 1D and 25, Paragraph 3A of the Rome Statute, committed starting from 5th December 2013 in the context of the attack in Boeing and Qatar, Bangi. Under count 5 of the charges, guilty of the war crime of displacement, pursuant to Articles 8, Paragraph 2, E, Roman 8, and Paragraph 25, and Article 25, Paragraph 3A of the Rome Statute, committed starting from 5th December 2013 in the context of the attack in Boeing and Qatar, Bangi. Under count 6 of the charges, guilty of the war crime of directing an attack against a building dedicated to religion, pursuant to Articles 8, Paragraph 2, E, Roman 4, and 25, Paragraph 3A of the Rome Statute, committed on 5th December 2013 in Boeing, Bangi. Under count 8 of the charges, guilty of the crime against humanity of persecution on religious grounds of Muslim civilians perceived by the Anti-Balaka as supporters of or affiliated with the Seleka, by attack against the civilian population as such, murder, forcible transfer and deportation, displacement, and directing an attack against a building dedicated to religion, committed starting from 5th December 2013 in the context of the attacks in Boeing and Qatar, Bangi, pursuant to Articles 7, Paragraph 1H and 25, Paragraph 3A of the Rome Statute. Under count 11 of the charges, guilty of the crime against humanity of other inhumane acts, pursuant to Article 7, Paragraph 1K and 25, Paragraph 3A of the Rome Statute, committed on or about 24th December 2013 at Yambara in Boeing, Bangi. Under count 12 of the charges, guilty of the crime against humanity of torture, pursuant to Articles 7, Paragraph 1F and 25, Paragraph 3A of the Rome Statute, committed on or about 24th December 2013 at Yambara in Boeing, Bangi. Under count 13 of the charges, guilty of the war crime of cruel treatment concerning the 6 persons and guilty of the war crime of torture and of one other, pursuant to Articles 8, Paragraph 2, CY and Article 25, paragraph 3a of the Rome Statute, committed on or about 24th December at Yambara in Bangi. Under count 14 of the charges, guilty of the crime against humanity of imprisonment and other forms of severe deprivation of physical liberty, pursuant to Articles 7, paragraph 1e and 25, paragraph 3a of the Rome Statute, committed on or about 24th December 2013 until on or about 27th December 2013 in Bangi. Under count 15 of the charges, guilty of the crime against humanity of murder, pursuant to Articles 7, paragraph 1a and 25, paragraph 3a of the Rome Statute, committed on or about 24th December 2013 at Yambara in Bangi. Under count 16 of the charges, guilty of the war crime of murder, pursuant to Articles 8, paragraph 2 cy and 25, paragraph 3a of the Rome Statute, committed on or about 24th December 2013 at Yambara in Bangi. Under count 17 of the charges, guilty of the crime against humanity of persecution on ethnic and religious grounds of civilians perceived by the Anti-Balaka as supporters of or affiliated with the Seleka, by other inhumane acts, torture, cruel treatment, imprisonment, and other forms of severe deprivation of physical liberty and murder, committed on or about 24th December 2013 until on or about 27th December 2013 in Bangi, pursuant to Articles 7, paragraph 1h and 25, paragraph 3a of the Rome Statute. Under count 24 of the charges, guilty of the crime against humanity of forcible transfer and deportation, pursuant to Articles 7, paragraph 1d and 25, paragraph 3a of the Rome Statute, committed between on or about 10th January 2014 and on or about 6 February 2014, in the context of the Anti-Balaka's advance through and takeover of villages along the Pike-9-Baiki axis, including Sekya, Ngangala, Bimon, Kapu, Bosangoa, Pisa, and Baiki. Under count 25 of the charges, guilty of the war crime of displacement, pursuant to Articles 8, paragraph 2e, Roman 8, and 25, paragraph 3a of the Rome Statute, committed between on or about 10th January 2014 and on or about 6 February 2014, in the context of the Anti-Balaka's advance through and takeover of villages along the PK9-Baiki axis, including Sekya, Ndangala, Bimon, Kapu, Bosangoa, Pisa, and Baiki. Under count 26 of the charges, guilty of the crime against humanity of murder, pursuant to Articles 7, paragraph 1a and 25, paragraph 3a of the Rome Statute, committed on 28 February 2014 in Baiki. Under count 27 of the charges, guilty of the war crime of murder, pursuant to Articles 8, paragraph 2 c, I, and 25, paragraph 3a of the Rome Statute, committed on 28 February 2014 in Baiki. Under count 28 of the charges, guilty of the crime against humanity of persecution on religious grounds of Muslim civilians perceived by the Anti-Balaka as supporters of or affiliated with the Seleka, by forcible transfer and deportation, displacement and murder, committed between on or about 10th January 2014 and on or about 6 February 2014, and on 28th February 2014 in the context of the Anti-Balaka's advance through and takeover of villages along the PK9-Baiki axis, including Sekya and Ndangala, Bimon, Kapu, Bosangoa, Pisa, and Baiki, pursuant to Articles 7, paragraph 1h and 25, paragraph 3 of the Rome Statute. By majority, under count 29 of the charges, not guilty of the war crime of conscripting or enlisting children under the age of 15 years into an armed group and using them to participate actively in hostilities, pursuant to Articles 8, paragraph 2e, Roman 7, and paragraph 25, paragraph 3, Article 25, paragraph 3a of the Rome Statute, between at least December 2013 and August 2014 in Boeing, Sekya, Pisa, and Batalimo. Patrice Edouard Ngai, under count 1 of the charges, guilty of the war crime of attack against the civilian population as such, pursuant to Articles 8, paragraph 2e, I, and 25, paragraph 3c of the Rome Statute, committed on 5th December 2013 in Bangi, including in Boeing and Qatar. On account 2 of the charges, guilty of the crime against humanity of murder, pursuant to Article 7, Paragraph 1a and 25, Paragraph 3c of the Rome Statute, committed on 5th December 2013 in the market in Boeing and Qatar, Bangi. On account 3 of the charges, guilty of the war crime of murder, pursuant to Articles 8, Paragraph 2, c, I, and 25, Paragraph 3c of the Rome Statute, committed on 5th December 2013 in the market in Boeing and Qatar, Bangi. On account 4 of the charges, guilty of the crime against humanity of forcible transfer and deportation pursuant to Articles 7, Paragraph 1d and 25, Paragraph 3c of the Rome Statute, committed starting from 5th December 2013 in the context of the attack in Boeing and Qatar, Bangi. On account 5 of the charges, guilty of the war crime of displacement pursuant to Articles 8, Paragraph 2e, Roman 8 and 25, Paragraph 3c of the Rome Statute, committed starting from 5th December 2013 in the context of the attack in Boeing and Qatar, Bangi. On account 6 of the charges, guilty of the war crime of directing an attack against a building dedicated to religion, pursuant to Articles 8, Paragraph 2e, Roman 4 and 25, Paragraph 3c of the Roman Statute, committed on 5th December 2013 in Boeing, Bangi. On account 8 of the charges, guilty of the crime against humanity of persecution on religious grounds of Muslim civilians perceived by the anti-Balaka as supporters of or affiliated with the Seleka by attack against the civilian population as such, murder, forcible transfer and deportation, displacement, and directing an attack against a building dedicated to religion, committed starting from 5th December 2013 in the context of the attack in Boeing and Qatar, Bangi, pursuant to Articles 7, Paragraph 1h and 25, Paragraph 3c of the Rome Statute. Under count 11 of the charges, guilty of the crime against humanity of other inhumane acts pursuant to Articles 7, Paragraph 1k and 25, Paragraph 3c of the Rome Statute, committed on or about 24th December 2013 at Yambara in Boeing, Bangi. By majority, under count 12 of the charges, guilty of the crime against humanity of torture, pursuant to Articles 7, Paragraph 1f and 25, Paragraph 3c of the Rome Statute, committed on or about 24th December 2013 at Yambara in Boeing, Bangi. Under count 13 of the charges, guilty of the war crime of cruel treatment concerning the 6 persons, pursuant to Articles 8, Paragraph 2, c, I, and 25, Paragraph 3c of the Rome Statute, and, by majority, guilty of the war crime of torture of one other, pursuant to Articles 8, Paragraph 2, c, I, and 25, Paragraph 3c of the Rome Statute, committed on or about 24th December 2013 at Yambara in Boeing, Bangi. On account 14 of the charges, guilty of the crime against humanity of imprisonment and other forms of severe deprivation of physical liberty, pursuant to Articles 7, Paragraph 1e and 25, Paragraph 3c of the Rome Statute, committed on or about 24th December 2013 until on or about 27th December 2013 in Boeing, Bangi. By majority, under count 15 of the charges, guilty of the crime against humanity of murder, pursuant to Articles 7, Paragraph 1a and 25, Paragraph 3c of the Rome Statute, committed on or about 24th December 2013 at Yambara in Boeing, Bangi. By majority, under count 16 of the charges, guilty of the war crime of murder, pursuant to Articles 8, Paragraph 2, c, I, and 25, Paragraph 3c of the Rome Statute, committed on or about 24th December 2013 at Yambara in Boeing, Bangi. Under count 17 of the charges, guilty of the crime against humanity of persecution on ethnic and religious grounds of civilians perceived by the anti-Balaka as supporters of or affiliated with the Seleka by other inhumane acts, torture, cruel treatment, imprisonment, and other forms of severe deprivation of physical liberty and murder, committed on or about 24th December 2013 until on or about 27th December 2013 in Boeing, Bangi, pursuant to Articles 7, Paragraph 1h and 25, Paragraph 3c of the Rome Statute. Under count 24 of the charges, guilty of the crime against humanity of forcible transfer and deportation, pursuant to Articles 7, Paragraph 1d and 25, Paragraph 3c of the Rome Statute, committed between on or about 10th January 2014 and on or about 6 February 2014 in the context of the anti-Balaka's advance through and takeover of villages along the PK9-Bangi axis, including Sekya, Ndangala, Bimon, Kapu, Bosongo, Pisan, and Bangi. Under count 25 of the charges, guilty of the war crime of displacement, pursuant to Articles 8, paragraph 2e, Roman 8, and 25, paragraph 3c of the Rome Statute, committed between on or about 10th January 2014 and on or about 6 February 2014 in the context of the anti-Balaka's advance through and takeover of villages along the PK9 and Bangi axis, including Sekya, Ndangala, Bimon, Kapu, Bosongo, Pisa, and Bangi. On account 26 of the charges, guilty of the crime against humanity of murder, pursuant to Article 7, paragraph 1a and 25, paragraph 3c of the Rome Statute, committed on 28 February 2014 in Bangi. On account 27 of the charges, guilty of the war crime of murder, pursuant to Articles 8, paragraph 2c, I, and 25, paragraph 3c of the Rome Statute, committed on 28 February 2014 in Bangi. On account 28 of the charges, guilty of the crime against humanity of persecution on religious grounds of Muslim civilians perceived by the anti-Balaka as supporters of or affiliated with the Seleka, by forcible transfer and deportation, displacement and murder, committed between on or about 10th January 2014 and on or about 6 February 2014 and on 28th February 2014 in the context of the anti-Balaka's advance through and takeover of villages along the PK9 and Bangi axis, including Sekya, Ndangala, Bimon, Kapu, Bosongo, Pisa, and Bangi, pursuant to Articles 7, paragraph 1h and 25, paragraph cc of the Rome Statute. On account 30 of the charges, guilty of the war crime of an attack against civilian population as such, pursuant to Articles 8, paragraph 2EI and 25, paragraph 3c of the Rome Statute, committed on 5th December 2013 in Bosangoa. On account 31 of the charges, guilty of the crime against humanity of murder, pursuant to Article 7, paragraph 1a and 25, paragraph 3c of the Rome Statute, committed on 5th December 2013 in Bosangoa. On account 32 of the charges, guilty of the war crime of murder, pursuant to Articles 8, paragraph 2ci and 25, paragraph 3c of the Rome Statute, committed on 5th December 2013 in Bosangoa. On account 33 of the charges, guilty of the war crime of destructing the adversary's property, pursuant to Articles 8, paragraph 2e, Roman 12, and 25, paragraph 3c of the Roman Statute, committed on 5th December 2013, and in the days thereafter in Bosangoa. On account 34 of the charges, not guilty of the war crime of pillaging, pursuant to Articles 8, paragraph 2e, Roman 5, and 25, paragraph 3c of the Rome Statute, committed on 5th December 2013 in Bosangoa. On account 35 of the charges, not guilty of the war crime of directing an attack against a building dedicated to religion, pursuant to Articles 8, paragraph 2e, Roman 4, and 25, paragraph 3c of the Rome Statute, committed on 5th December 2013 and in the week following in Bosangoa. On account 37 of the charges, guilty of the crime against humanity of forcible transfer and deportation, pursuant to Article 7, paragraph 1d and 25, paragraph 3c of the Rome Statute, committed starting from 5th December 2013 in the context of the attack on Bosangoa. On account 38 of the charges, guilty of the war crime of displacement, pursuant to Articles 8, paragraph 2e, Roman 8, and 25, paragraph 3c of the Rome Statute, committed starting from 5th December 2013 in the context of the attack on Bosangoa. Under count 39 of the charges, guilty of the crime against humanity of imprisonment and other forms of severe deprivation of physical liberty, pursuant to Articles 7, paragraph 1e and 25, paragraph 3c of the Rome Statute, committed on 5th December 2013 and in the weeks following in Bosangoa. On account 40 of the charges, not guilty of the crime against humanity of rape, pursuant to Articles 7, paragraph 1g and 25, paragraph 3c of the Rome Statute, committed on 5th December 2013 in Bosangoa. On account 41 of the charges, not guilty of the war crime of rape, pursuant to Articles 8, paragraph 2e, Roman 6 and 25, paragraph 3c of the Rome Statute committed on 5th December in Bosangoa. Under count 42 of the charges, guilty of the crime against humanity of persecution on religious grounds of Muslim civilians perceived by the Anti-Balaka as supporters of or affiliated with the Seleka, by attack against the civilian population as such, murder, destruction of the adversary's property, forcible transfer and deportation, displacement and imprisonment, and other forms of severe deprivation of physical liberty, committed starting from 5th December 2013 in the context of the attack on Bosangoa, pursuant to Articles 7, paragraph 1h and 25, paragraph 3c of the Rome Statute. On the basis of its analysis of evidence submitted and discussed at trial, and as set out in the judgment, the Chamber has therefore convicted Alfred Yekatom of a total of 20 crimes, comprising both crimes against humanity and war crimes. The Chamber has also convicted Patrice Edouard and Ngai ssona of a total of 28 crimes, comprising both crimes against humanity and war crimes. As specified in detail in the verdict rendered by the Chamber, Alfred Yekatom has been found guilty of a number of crimes he committed in the context of the attack on Bangi, the events at Yambara, and during the advance of his group on the PK9 Bangi axis. Namely, attacks against the civilian population as such, murder, forcible transfer, displacement and deportation, directing an attack against a building dedicated to religion, torture, cruel treatment, other inhumane acts, imprisonment and other severe deprivation of physical liberty and persecution. Further, and as specified in detail in the verdict and in the judgment, Patrice Edouard and Ngai ssona has been found guilty of a number of crimes he aided, abetted, or otherwise assisted to in the context of the attacks on Bangi and Bosangoa, the events at Yambara, and during the advance of the Anti-Balaka on the PK9 Bangi axis. Namely, attacks against the civilian population as such, murder, forcible transfer, displacement, deportation, directing an attack against a building dedicated to religion, torture, cruel treatment, other inhumane acts, imprisonment, and other severe deprivation of physical liberty, destruction of property, and persecution. As alluded to before, except for a chamber proceeding under Article 65 of the statute, admission of guilt, this is the first time that the chamber is pronouncing sentences at the same time as its verdict. As required by the law, the chamber has entered individual sentences for each crime for which a conviction has been entered. A lot of factors had to be considered. This includes the assessment on all relevant considerations in this regard are outlined in its written decision. This includes the assessment of the individual contributions to the crimes by the accused and which aggravating and mitigating factors, if any, the chamber took into account. The decision also outlines the basis for the chamber's conclusion on the respective joint sentences. In that respect, I recall that the prosecution has requested for Mr. Yekatom a sentence not less than 22 years in prison, and for Mr. Ngai ssona a sentence not less than 20 years in prison. The victims' legal representatives have requested a sentence of 30 years for both accused. The defense of Mr. Ngai ssona and Mr. Yekatom have requested that in case of a conviction, the maximum potential sentence should be time served in detention. I will now pronounce the joint sentences for the accused on behalf of the chamber. Mr. Yekatom, please rise. Mr. Yekatom, having considered all the relevant factors for the determination of the sentence, the chamber sentences you to a total of 15 years of imprisonment. You may sit down. Mr. Ngai, please rise. Mr. Ngai, having considered all the relevant factors for the determination of the sentence, the Chamber sentences you to a total of 12 years of imprisonment. You may sit down. Well, as I said, all the details of the really complex and complicated decision on sentencing. In this regard, we had also to, of course, consider that there is a huge factual overlap between the many convictions we had. Could be seen and could be read in the written judgment, which is very comprehensive in that regard. This concludes today's hearing for the delivery of the judgment in the case of the prosecutor versus Alfred Yekatom and Patrice Edouard Ngai. The court is adjourned.
All rise. Veuillez vous lever.